Hi, I'm Lauren Green, and you are in the Strategy Room. Marine Corps Commandant General Robert Neller testified in front of the Senate Armed Services Committee to address the nude photo scandal that is rattling the Marines. The controversy involves the sharing of explicit images of women in the armed forces by Marines, often accompanied by lewd, misogynistic comments. Well, the general urged the women involved to trust him. Take a listen.
I ask you to trust the leadership of the Marine Corps to take action and correct this problem. I ask you to trust me personally as your commandant. And when I say I'm outraged that many of you haven't been given the same respect when you earn the title Marine. I know you aren't asking to be labeled as victims. For anyone's pity, I know you would find that as insulting as the recent behavior and comments on social media.
Well, here to discuss our Bureau Chief of Talk Media News and Fox News contributor Ellen Ratner and radio talk show host Kevin McCullough. Thank you both for joining me.
Hi, Lauren.
Thank you. All right, Kevin, let me start with you, because General Neller also said that a task force was set up to examine the underlying cultural issues behind the scandal. So is this enough to address the problem? I mean, this is what everybody does. They get the task force together, but will any good come from it?
Well, I think that you have to form a task force, and you have to go beyond just punishing the people involved. You got to look at the culture that allowed such a thing to happen, and it may not be entirely just military in terms of the cultural influences that created the opportunity. Let's face it, we carry around pretty invasive privacy invaders in our pockets now, and we've got to change, some of our own discretion in terms of what we put out there. But I think in general, you've got to deal with technology and how fast people can trade information, and that's how this grew from something that was just, a couple of guys to like 30,000. And he's really got to do some serious soul searching and make sure that the Marines understand this is not acceptable.
Right, right. Ellen, we're talking about that task force, but what sort of changes can be, or should be instituted to prevent, this kind of thing from happening in the future?
It is interesting that the Air Force and Air Force Academy had this same kind of crisis several years ago. Now, it was before social media was so ubiquitous, but still, they absolutely were able to change the culture and change what happened. And what happens is, if you do not do that, then the discipline that you are asking Marines to have will not happen. And what happens is, by doing this kind of craziness by members of the Marines, you actually hurt the discipline that is required of Marines and any armed services in our nation.
Kevin, that brings up a good point, because, how widespread do you think the problem is? Because, the military itself, and particularly the Marines, are quite disciplined.
Well, and I would like to think that all of our branches of military servicemen and women are, and there are always going to be a handful of people that, skirt the edges, try to get away with stuff. I don't think the actions of the few should outweigh the benefit of what the many are doing, but I think that there just has to be a reinforcement. We live in a different day. Technology gives us different access to people than it did before. We need to be people of character, and we need to bring back good old voluntary chivalry. If we thought of one another as preferential to ourselves, kind of the old golden rule, we could begin to fix a lot of these things, and this is what the upper brass has to begin to reinforce.
Yeah, Ellen, your final thoughts, and just a comment on, do you think that
my
the
final
Marines have
thoughts are,
Okay, go ahead.
When somebody enters the Air Force Academy, they're told that underneath that hat is everybody is the same. And that is what needs to be the message that the Marines give out as well.
All right. I want to thank you so much, Ellen and Kevin, for joining me.
Thank you.
And for complete political coverage, stay right here at foxnews.com. I'm Lauren Green, and thanks for watching.